Hello, welcome back to the Fruit of Grisaia. Okay. Now Sachi and Yuuji are together. To be sure, that's all completely standard Sachi, but the way she was gazing off absent-mindedly instead of waiting attentively for her next orders is a little unusual. Yuuji and Sachi. Also, I know this is a little late in the game, but sorry about springing the girlfriend thing on you out of nowhere.
いえ、そんなことはありません。風見さんにそう言っていただけるのはとても嬉しいことですから。
Happy, huh? If what Sachi calls happiness now was really something deserving of the name, I don't think I would have gotten this worried about her. At the moment, she's buried her feelings so deep that she can't even give herself a straight answer about whether she likes me. But for the same reason, becoming a formal couple should be a meaningful development. Anyway, I know it must seem sudden, but I meant what I said to the others. Now that we're dating, I'm going to put real effort into being your boyfriend. That's a promise. So sweet! I like them together already. Fair warning, I'm planning to give you a few pushes forward to help you be yourself.
私が私でいられるようにというのは何やら哲学的なお話ですね。
I'm not going to explain yet. You'll have to wait and see.
なるほど。風見さんなりのサプライズというわけですね。
I think they will be pretty good together. That it is? Get a bit excited?
はい、今の風見さんなら俺は総理大臣になると言っても驚きません。
I am really looking forward to Amane, but this is still nice. You really should be. Look, there's no point in acting surprised now, okay?
なるほど。なかなかタイミングが難しいです。
Even in casual, aimless conversations like this, Sachi's self-imposed rules regularly assert themselves. No matter what happened in the past, she's a student at Mihama Academy now. In that case, we may as well get her a few appropriate memories to remember her student life by. I think that's what Sachi needs more than anything else right now. It's not going to solve all her problems, but it's a necessary start. Okay, here's the thing. Now that we're in a relationship, there's 3 things I want you to try and do for me, Sachi.
それはズバリ風見さんの性欲、愛欲、肉欲を満たすことですね。
Not only are you spectacularly wrong, but all 3 of those may need the exact same thing.
では
Number 1, try to spend as much time with me as you can, within reason.
なるべくということは寝るときやトイレ、お風呂の時間以外と考えていいのでしょうか。
Roughly, yeah. But I'm not looking to establish any hard and fast rules here. Don't think too hard about these.
わかりました。
Both of you should love each other just as much. Sachi closes her eyes and nods slightly to herself in a familiar gesture. Both of you deserve an equal amount of love. Come to think of it, this probably signifies the moment where she binds herself to a new precept. Okay, second up.
はい。
From now on, I want you to try and actively think about the reasons behind things.
理由を考えるですか？
That's right. Remember that time a while back when Michiru asked you to bring her a metal bat?
それは 風見さんと一緒に大浴場のお掃除をした日のことですよね。
That's right. At the time, you told me you weren't interested in the reason Mature wanted the bat, but I think you'd be better off showing a little more curiosity about things like that. For one thing, some effort in that department should help cut down on those weird misunderstandings you're always making. Alright. As for number 3, generally speaking, I want you to observe my behavior carefully.
すみません。それはどういう意味でしょう。
Yeah, let's see. As your boyfriend, I'm going to spend a lot of time with you. We'll do plenty of things together and talk a lot more than we used to. So, as my girlfriend, I'd like you to actively make note of how I act in any given situation. I know you might not understand at the moment, but I think it's going to be helpful down the road.
わかりました。それなら風見さんの一挙手一投足をこの目にしっかりと焼き付けておくようにします。
Yeah, you do that. So far, so good. If these rules function properly, the time we spend together should prove beneficial to Sachi. That's all I wanted to say, but do you have any questions on your end, Sachi?
では、一つ質問があるのですが。
Good to hear. Shoot.
はい。実は先ほどからずっと気になっていたのですが、風見さんの私に対する呼び方はサチからサッチにシフトしたのでしょうか。
I was just thinking how unusual it was for you to be staring off into the distance, but you were worrying about that of all things? Well, what do you have to say,
何を言うん
Yuuji?
ですか、風見さん。呼び名は日常生活はもちろん作戦行動下においてもそれなりに重要な役割を担っているポイントですよ。もし風見さんのコードネームがマッドハッターではなくみちる様だったら通信のたびに嘲笑がこぼれ仕事どころではなくなるはずです。
Okay. You know, Matir would bite your leg if she heard that. But considering the Matir-sama incident, this does seem to be a fairly important point to Sachi. Alright, if it's that big a deal to you, I'll think it over carefully.
よろしくお願いします。
That said, the nickname before was a completely spur-of-the-moment thing, and Sachi has always worked pretty well for me. Alright, I think I'm going to stick with Sachi after all. It's what I'm used to at this point.
わかりました。それでは逆に私はこれから風見さんのことを何とお呼びしたらいいでしょう。
Let's see. The way she is now, Sachi'd probably call me Oni-chan or Darling without even batting an eyelid if I asked. Might be something worth taking advantage of since I have the chance. Alright then, from now on, why don't you call me Yukon the way you used to?
これは心がけ2にも関わる質問なのですが、風見さんはそちらの方がお好みということなのでしょうか。
Yeah, I guess. It's kind of nostalgic, and first names feel more natural for a couple, don't you think?
なるほど。ゆうくんには 効果があったんですね。
If you like, I can call you Sachi and myself.
その場合、あまねさんとのかぶりが懸念されますが、風見さんのご希望ということであれば、私は首を縦に振るだけです。
Alright, understood. As always, she's seriously awkward when it comes to expressing what she really wants.
ギギギギ、私の名前で笑いが巻き起こるだなんて。サチとは一度私有を決する必要がありそうね。やめときなって、みちるが絶対負けるんだから。
Did they overhear all this or something?
それより普通にいい雰囲気だったのは気のせいかしら。
Are you spying on us?
ああ、それは確かにね。なんか覗き見るのも悪い気がしてくるくらいだったかも。だから私は最初から言ってるのよさ。お前らは心配しすぎなだけ。ちょっとマーキナ、あんたユージのことをお兄ちゃんって呼ぶくらい気に入ってるくせに、何一人だけ大人ぶってるのよ。いいチルチル、人は常に成長する生き物なのよ。成長しないのは歩みを止めた人間とチルチルの胸くらいのものなのよさ。あんたも泣かす。いつか絶対泣かせてやるんだから。やめときなって。逆に泣かされるのが目に見えてるんだから。負けるな私。
My master always used to tell me that the success or failure of an operation is 80% decided before you pull the trigger. Point being, preliminary planning and advanced groundwork are crucial, and in general, disorganization and dysfunction in the field is the product of problems with your group's interpersonal dynamics. Smooth communication and functional relationships create the favorable conditions necessary for success. You need to keep the people around you up to date on your situation and ensure that everyone shares a common understanding. In obedience to that theory, I voluntarily submitted myself to an aggravating interrogation from my classmates yesterday, but unfortunately there's still one more person in the school I need to offer a report to. Well, considering that she possesses the authority to restrict my actions, it might be more accurate to call this one a negotiation rather than a report. When negotiating, it's a serious mistake to admit a position of weakness. If the balance of power is overwhelmingly tilted toward your opponent, your goal is to keep them from realizing it. At times, a little empty bravado is called for. So, in summary, Sachi and I are dating as of yesterday. You have a problem with that?
それはおめでとう。
Apparently unfazed by both my arrogant tone and my sizable pair of feet, currently propped up on our nice wooden table, Chizuru offers me a little round of mock applause in place of a scolding. Aren't teachers supposed to object to this sort of thing by default?
それは偏見というものよ。健全なお付き合いは人を成長させるものだし、私としては反対する理由がありません。
Dating in school is not really easy. You're not considering the possibility I might take advantage of Sachi and then throw her away?
そうすることが小峰さんのためになるとあなたが判断したなら、私は何も言わないわ。
Sounds like something JB would say.
あら、ハルデラさんに似ていると言ってもらえるのは嬉しいわね。
What? A modest, youthful woman like you, who could still pass for a student in a pinch, idolizing some shaggy-headed bimbo who traipses around dressed like an effeminate stage magician?
違います。
What?
そんな言い方は彼女に失礼だし、彼女以上にあなたのことを理解している人間はいないという意味でです。
Man, really wordy again, Yuji. That's a relief.
それに、あなたがそんなことのできない子だってことくらいは知っているつもりよ。
And now she's talking like some kind of educator, cheeky woman.
じゃあ、私の職業は？
You're a principal.
大変よくできました。
The women I know have a habit of coolly declaring that they understand things about me that I'm not aware of myself. From my perspective, it's kind of disconcerting. Maybe I'm just that transparent a human being, but whatever the case. This sort of vague, unconditional trust just makes the pressure and sense of responsibility I burden myself with weigh all the heavier on my shoulders.
というわけで、私は学生の自主性を尊重します。
Independence, she says. This sense that I'm acting exactly as teacher anticipated is a little galling, but I guess putting up with a bit of smug self-satisfaction on her part is far preferable to fighting against her opposition. To be honest though, I'm not confident I can play the boyfriend role particularly well.
あなたが弱音を吐くなんて珍しいわね。
Guess so. My master taught me the knowledge and attitude necessary to get by in Ichigaya, and so far, I've been able to compensate for my shortcomings in other fields through determined effort. So, if I was dealing with someone who wanted a comfortable lifestyle, or a prettier face, or something, I'm confident that I'd be able to make it happen, given enough time. But I honestly don't know if I'll ever be able to make happiness mean the same thing for Sachi as it does for me. I'm well aware that once someone forgets what happiness is, it's not easy to make them remember again. After all, you could say this whole project is an attempt to do for Sachi what my master did for me.
そう。あなたには悪いけど、今の言葉を聞いて少し安心したわ。
Chizuru relaxes in her chair as she speaks, and her eyes find mine, gentle as a new mother's. Why would hearing about my self-doubt inspire relief exactly?
それはあなたが仕事を依頼した業者だっていうなら不安にもなるけれど、今のあなたは学生で、そもそも人間という生き物自体が未完成なものでしょ。だから初めてのことには自信がなくて当然だし、人との付き合いを繰り返していくことでその穴を埋めていくものなんじゃないかしら。
Weren't you the one mocking me for being a romantic just the other day? You're laying it on pretty thick yourself all of a sudden.
私がこんな話をしてるからって茶化しているわけじゃないのよ。
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
だったらいいんだけど、あなたが今いる場所は学園だということは覚えておいてほしいわね。
And what's that supposed to mean apart from the blindingly obvious?
学園という場所には教師である私がいて、クラスメートの女の子たちがいる。だからわからないことや不安なことがあったらどんどん周りに助けを求めればいいじゃない。
Help from the people around me, huh?
あなたもこの学園に来てからしばらくになるし、あの子たちが意外に頼りになるってことには気づいているんじゃない？
At first glance, they're an eccentric bunch, and a number of them have serious deficiencies as students. Some serious deficiencies as students, but as a group, they've got an unexpectedly observant and responsible side when it comes to helping out their classmates. When Sachi went missing, every one of them cooperated on their own initiative, above and beyond what I asked of them. Can't say Chizuru's wrong about this one.
その顔は覚えありって感じね。
Yeah, I suppose so.
それに今は幸い夏休みなんだし、小峰さんとの時間を増やしていく間にあなたなりの答えを見つければいいんじゃないかしら。いくらあなたが仕事を抱えた学生だと言ってもそれくらいの時間はあるでしょう。
Yes, you're probably right. My uncertainty about this new relationship is my own problem. The things Sachi needs from me aren't going to change. The soul searching and second guessing can wait until after she's regained something like normality.
いまだに学生に間違われる女の話でも少しは役に立った？
Yeah, my apologies. I retract the comment.
そうそう、あなたにはその謙虚さが大切よ。
As Chizuru stands from her chair, I follow her lead and push myself up on the sofa. Well, I'll give it my best shot.
え？あまり難しく考える必要なんてない。あなたが小峰さんのことを考えて行動しようと思っているなら、それはもう立派な彼氏なんだと思うわよ。
Hope you're right. Just as I reported to Chizuru yesterday, Sachi and I officially became a couple. Although doing so was a necessary step toward helping Sachi regain herself, I don't want our relationship to be nothing but the means to an end. And while my master taught me a few things about romance, it was more like playing make-believe than anything else. This is the first time I've been in a genuine romantic partnership. Partnership. Is that all it is to you? I've somehow stumbled into a position of potentially considerable influence over the life of someone I care about. It's a heavy thought. A single drop of sweat runs down my spine, sending a slight, unseasonable chill through my body. Guess it's only natural that I'd be nervous. Lowering my eyes from the ceiling, I discover a shadowy shape protruding slightly from behind a pillar. Judging from the single glint of light that follows as I move, they're probably watching me with a monocular of some sort. A decently made toy of that sort can read fine newsprint from 10 meters. The Pro models are highly useful as inconspicuous portable surveillance devices. But since this is almost certainly just Machina screwing around with something she ordered out of the back of a comic book, it shouldn't pose a problem to just leave it be. But even as I move from place to place, the shadowy form in its glint of light falls persistently. Getting followed around all day would be kind of unpleasant. I think it's time I put an end to this. After a moment of quiet concentration, I throw open my eyes and dash fiercely at my hidden observer. And, making full use of my surprise advantage, I barrel straight into my target before they have time to react. Sachi. As my momentum carries us rolling across the ground, I twist my body to protect the stalker from the impact. When we come to rest in the shadows, there's a floral scent tickling my nose and the feeling of something soft in my hand. This would be a female breast if I'm not mistaken. A little small for Amane or Yumiko, but not meager enough to be Makina or Michiru. Sachi, that you?
驚きました。
He thought that was Makina.
ゆうくんは胸の大きさで人物を特定することが可能なんですね。
Well, to be honest, I was also going off your scent in non-reaction to being tackled, among other things. I rise to my feet as I speak, then reach out a hand to Sachi, who's still sprawled out on the ground. Why are you blushing all of a sudden?
いえ、これから彼氏彼女的なことをするのなら雰囲気作りをと思いまして。
I appreciate the thought, but nobody asked for that sort of help.
では、どうして私は押し倒されてしまったのでしょう。
Because you've been stalking me since I left the principal's office.
ということは、最初から気づかれていたんですね。
Of course I was. The way you kept pointing that thing straight at my face, it'd be pretty hard to miss the reflection from the lens.
なるほど。以前マキちゃんとスパイごっこをするために購入していた KGB で採用されていると噂のスパイスコープを使ってみたのですが、反射光のことまでは取扱説明書に書いてありませんでした。
Well, probably because it was too obvious to mention. More importantly, why did you feel the need to conduct a surveillance operation on me this late in the game? Did somebody ask you to investigate my movements?
はい、ゆうくんに頼まれました。
Oh, I did. Wait, I did?
はい、ゆうくんは昨日私に俺のことをよく見ていてくれと言っていましたから。
And that's why you were spying on me from the shadows with a binocular?
はい、裸眼よりも細かな部分の変化を見逃さないようレンズ6枚プリズム2枚構成で抜かりなしです。
How reassuring. Naturally, I didn't mean observe carefully in that sense, but Sachi interpreted it this way. I'll have to make a mental note for future reference. Just as I'm heaving a small sigh, Michiru's shrill voice approaches.
ちょっと頼みたいことがあるんだけど。って何よ、ユージも一緒？
If that's a problem, I can leave.
別にそういうわけじゃないけど。まさか付き合い始めたことをいいことにこんなところでおかしなことをしようとしてたわけじゃないでしょうね。
落ち着いてくださいみちる様。鼻息の荒さが尋常じゃなくなっています。
そうね、せっかくの淑女が台無しになるところだったわ。
My finely honed instincts are telling me it's probably best not to ask what dignity at the moment.
それで本題はどのようなお話だったんですか？
ちょっとサチに部屋の片付けを手伝ってもらいたかったのよ。
In other words, you're incapable of picking up after yourself. Good to know.
私はあれよ、とても綺麗好きだけど部屋を散らかす方がちょっとだけ得意なのよ。
Sounds rough.
でしょー。で、サチは今大丈夫なの？
ゆうくん、みちる様がこう言ってるのですが。
ゆうくん！
I'm pretty sure I already mentioned she used to call me that when we were kids. Is it that surprising to hear her using it now?
そういえば屋上でそんな話になってたわよね。
On the roof?
うわー、なんでもないわよ。電波宇宙からの回電波をたまたまキャッチみたいな。あっはっは。サチ、あんたは急に人のツインテールを引っ張ってどうするつもり？
いえ、どうやらアンテナの具合が悪かったようでしたので微調整を。
あんたは電波を受信なんて冗談に決まってるでしょ。空飛ぶ魔法の冗談よ。
はい、みちる様のギャグは2月の北海道より寒いですよね。
それって褒め言葉？それともけなし言葉？
That has to be one of the more inept attempts at dodging a question I've ever seen. It seems safe to conclude our classmates were listening in our conversation on the rooftop.
でどうなの？サチ借りてっちゃっても平気？
Yeah, don't mind me.
ということらしいです。
じゃあ彼氏の OK も出たしお願いね。
はい。
Accept what others ask of you without exception. You could call that the principle that defines Sachi as she is today. So come to think of it, this might present a good opportunity to disrupt the status quo a little. Actually, hold on a second.
かした？
Can I help out with this request as well?
え、ユージが私の部屋の片付けをってこと？
Yeah.
急にどうしてよ。
Cleaning a room involves physical labor after all. As a boyfriend, I think it's only natural that I reduce my girlfriend's burden wherever possible.
あ
Okay.
あ、はいはい。ユウはのろけですか。一人者への見せつけってわけですか。
You can interpret it however you want. Is it alright if I help, or do you want Sachi to handle this alone for some reason?
そうね。私としては部屋が片付けば問題ないわね。
Very accommodating of you. Much obliged.
あれ、なんか私感謝されてる？
Yeah, that you did. You're just as understanding as I'd hoped, Machiro.
ふふふふ、よくわからないけどユージに褒められるのも悪い気分じゃないわね。というわけでサチ、今回はユージにも手伝ってもらうことにするから。
はい、依頼主のみちる様がおっしゃるのであれば私は全然構いません。
Alright, Sachi, you'll be operating as my support.
了解です。
早速仕切られてるし。
Well then, okay. so this is Machiro's.
片付けの手伝いは了承したけど、あんまりチロチロ見ないでよ。
Not a problem. I've more or less grasped the structure of the room itself.
ではゆうくん、みちる様の下着がしまわれている場所はどこだかわかりますか？
Same as you, Sachi, in the top drawer of her dresser.
なんでわかるのよ。あんたもしかしてエスパー？
Actually, that's exactly it, but if the truth gets out, it'd become a huge hassle. Keep it secret from the others, will you?
そう、あんたもいろいろ大変だったのね。
At times like these, one can't help being grateful for Michiru's easily manipulated nature. Anyway, the room itself doesn't look that messy. What did you want us to clean up specifically?
それはあれよ。
Averting her eyes in shame, Michiru points to a corner of her room where numerous stacks of dusty manga tower halfway to the ceiling. From a glance at the titles, they all seem to be tsundere-centric.
ゆるゆるに縛られたままのビニール紐が自分で片付けようとして挫折したことを物語っていますね。
しょうがないでしょ。いくらきつく縛ろうとしても最後で緩んじゃうんだから。
And that's why you came to Sachi?
そうよ。これでやることは分かったんだから、あとは任せてもいいのよね。
Yeah, I already gave you my word I'd help, so you can expect my best efforts.
よろしくお願いします。
Gathering the plastic string from the floor, I make 3 loops, then begin to slip the magazines inside, about 6 at a time. Get a good pile inside, then cross the strings so they intersect on top. Make a few small loops at the corners, and only then pull at the top. Ah, there, a good tight bundle.
何？ ちはあれ、テレビのゴールデンタイムで裏技の番組とかやってた人？
Not quite. Picked this one up from some book I read ages ago, that's all.
最近だと荷造り用の紐自体にいくつかの結び方が記載してある場合も多いですよ。
へえ、私紐の結び方なんて蝶々結びくらいしか知らないかも。
Sachi, how many do we have left?
それが今ゆうくんがまとめているもので最後みたいです。
My hand's still in motion. I asked for a progress report, only to be informed the job's practically over. By dividing the work efficiently between the two of us, we've completed Michiru's request in less than 10 minutes.
じゃあそろそろ私がビニール紐で縛られてるわけを説明してちょうだい。
Huh? When I turned back, Michiru was rolling helplessly around the floor, her entire body bound tightly with plastic string in the popular tortoiseshell pattern. Hey there, Michiru. I understand if you have acquired a taste for bondage, but it strikes me as kind of rude to play with yourself while people are doing your chores for you.
私だって好きで縛られてるわけじゃないわよ。これはあんたの彼女がやったの。
Sachi did?
はい、ゆうくんのおかげで作業的に余裕がありましたので、この機会に縛り方を体で覚えていただこうと思いまして。
この機会にじゃないわよ。教えるなら普通に教えてよ。っていうかそもそも縛り方違うし。
では次は本を縛るのと同じ方法で。
それはいいからさっさとほどきなさいよ、もう。
わかりました。
Of course. Although I suppose this could be taken as another demonstration of the friendly, interesting relationship these two share. The way she meekly allowed Sachi to truss her up like a Christmas ham can only be described as pure mature.
でもまあ私が苦労したのが嘘みたいにすぐ終わっちゃったわね。
Well, yeah, the request itself wasn't anything particularly tough.
ゆうくん、その発言は私たちの力を借りたみちる様への侮辱になる可能性があります。
私だってやろうと思えばきっと一人でできたわよ。
その代わり緩んだ紐が原因でゴミを出す日に階段で漫画をぶちまけ、ヌヒーと叫ぶみちる様の姿が見えます。
占うな占うな。まあ二人のおかげで助かったのは本当だから一応お礼は言っとくわ。
Yeah, same to you, Michiru. You've been a help.
ありがとうございます、みちる様。
なんか手伝いを頼んだ方がお礼を言われるって変な感じね。
No need to think too hard about that one. Incidentally, if you need another favor sometime, you can come straight to me.
そしたら今日みたいにユージが手伝ったりしてくれるの？
Yeah, as long as I can help, I will. Anything you want, feel free to ask. Hardly as shocking an offer as all that, is it?
その変なことは言ってないんだけど、なんでもっていうのは本当になんでもなの？
I don't know what else I'd mean. Same deal as Sachi, basically. Of course, that only goes for the humanly possible.
それでも十分すぎる。
Muttering the words more to herself than anyone else, Michiru pumps a fist at her side in an apparent display of enthusiasm. What's with you?
なんでもないわよ。とにかく今日は助かったわ。じゃあそういうことでまたね。
Yeah. Okay. After abruptly terminating the conversation, Michiru practically pushes Sachi and me out of her room, then slams the door shut. Don't really understand what that was all about, but it seems like she has something on her mind all of a sudden.
昨今のゲリラ豪雨より唐突。それがみちる様ですから。
It seems today I can fully decipher Michiru's modus operandi is still far away.
それと、ゆうくんはこれから何をする予定なのでしょうか？
Not really. Thought I'd just read in my room for a while.
でしたら、私もご一緒させていただいてもよろしいでしょうか？
Yeah, I'm the one who just asked you to try and spend time with me after all.
ありがとうございます。
These actions have meaning. This is for her own good in the long run. But even so, that doesn't change the fact that I'm taking advantage of Sachi's internal rules to manipulate her behavior.
ゆうくん、
Something wrong?
もしかして私、何か変なことを言ったでしょうか？
No, not really.
それならよかったです。
Apparently relieved by my response, Sachi smiles broadly. I noticed this earlier as well, but apparently the girl's pretty astute at picking up on small changes in my expression. Okay, back to the topic at hand. Go grab a few books from your room and bring them over, alright? The genre doesn't matter.
わかりました。では、10分後くらいにお邪魔させていただきますね。
Yeah. Once she asked that question, those clear and steady eyes seemed to be staring right through my skull to the guilty feelings rolling around inside my mind. Gave me a bit of a start.
Yoshi. 二人とももう行ったみたいね。ユージが何でも言うことを聞くなんて大情報。すぐに当局へ報告しないと。何？
Okay then. I do not know what they are planning. Inside my practically undecorated room, silent except for the sound of the air conditioning I turned on for Sachi's benefit, I turned the pages of my book without offering any real conversation. Sachi doesn't offer a word of complaint at any of this. When I glance over, she's sitting passively exactly where she was an hour ago, a contented smile on her face. Look, Sachi, are you planning to read at some point or what?
こうしてゆうくんを見ているだけでも楽しいのですが、やはり私も本を読んだ方がいいでしょうか。
Well, I'm not trying to force you or anything, But is watching someone who's sitting around reading a book really any fun?
そうですね。読んでいる内容や部分によって表情に微妙な変化がありますし、もう2時間くらいはずっと同じ姿勢で本を読み続けているのはすごい集中力です。これがマキちゃんなら早々に飽きを示して今頃一人インゴしりとりを始めていると思います。
That's so?
はい。
Although I can't say I enjoy being compared to Makina, I guess it's safe to interpret that as an attempt at a compliment. I think I've told you this a few times by now, but you're definitely a unique one, Sachi.
はい、ありがとうございます。
For example, I don't think you'll find many people who will smile happily after essentially being called bizarre to their face. But that said, spending this quiet time alone together isn't so bad on my end either. In fact, it brings back some faint memories of the old days. We used to watch each other like this a lot in that park. I'd look up at Sachi as she soared into the sky on her swing, and she'd look over the bench at me as I started my homework. At this stage in my life, that constant presence at my side doesn't feel as natural as it did back then. That gaze makes it a little harder to relax even, but ask me if I find it unpleasant, and my answer would be a definite no. Just as I'm reaching the end of my book, my attention is caught by the sound of someone rushing noisily down the stairs.
ねえユージ、今日から私たちの奴隷になったって本当？
Well, is that what she did? Okay. A visitor and a bizarre question are too much to process on the fly. Sachi and I look quizzically into each other's faces. Look, woman, you burst into my room, fine, but do me a favor and keep your twisted delusions to yourself. I push myself up off the bed with a few cold words, then deliver a light poke directly to Amane's forehead.
だって気になる男の子が奴隷になったなんて話を聞いたらいても立ってもいられないでしょ普通。
Hold on, Amane. I roughly understand what happened here, but where exactly did you pick up this criminally fraudulent misinformation?
それはもちろん私なのよさ。
Another one popped up out of nowhere.
今の話をあんまねにしたら盛りのついた犬みたいに突然走り出したから、痛くなる横っ腹を押さえながら頑張ってついてきたのよ。盛りのついた犬ってね。
And where did you hear that story from, Makina?
それはもちろんため息の似合う黒女のユミちゃんからなのよさ。
To conjecture from what I've heard so far, it seems the offer I communicated to Machiro was badly distorted on its way to Amane in the classic telephone game style, but it'd be a pain to try and correct all their misunderstandings one by one, so I guess I'll gather the whole lot of them and explain. Before the story gets even more muddled, let's discuss this as a group.
では私はみちる様と榊さんにお声をかけてきますね。
Yeah, I appreciate it. As it turned out that Sakaki had left the dorm for a while, we ended up waiting for the slightly cooler evening before gathering in the lobby for our little chat. Now that I've got you all together, I've got a few preliminary questions for clarity's sake. Sakaki, what did you tell Makina this afternoon?
私は松島さんから聞いた話をそのままイリスさんに伝えただけよ。
Alright then, Michiru, what did you tell Sakaki?
私はユージが何でも人の頼みを聞くって伝えたはずだけど。
I see, so that's how it is.
なんで私が叩かれてるのよ。
Because from the sound of things, you're pretty obviously the sole criminal here.
だって何でも言うこと聞くって言ったらエロいこと OK って考えるのが当然じゃね。だからって奴隷はないでしょう。奴隷はその考えは甘いのよ。今の若者に必要なのは発想力。常に他人の一歩先を行くことが重要なのよさ。それとこれとは完全に別問題だと思うけど。まあうすうすそんな気はしてたんだけどね。
Smiling wryly, Amane rubs the back of her head in an uncharacteristic gesture of mild embarrassment.
でもユージが私たちの頼みを聞くって言ったのは本当の話よね。
Yeah, I did indeed say that.
だから私がユミコに伝えたことは間違いじゃないわけよ。うん。それは分かったけれど、本当に何でもなの？
Well, it has to be something I'm capable of doing, but more or less.
それは当然としても。どうして突然そんなことになったわけ？
It's a little complicated, but to put it simply, I'm doing this for Sachi's sake.
ああ、そういえばさっきもサチの負担を減らしたいとか言ってたもんね。
Michiru shrugs her shoulders, a mildly exasperated expression on her face.
つまりさっちゃんの彼氏になったからにはユージもメイドさんになると？
Yeah, I guess you could put it that way. Although I could quibble about that phrasing, she's got the crucial point down. I'm assuming the role normally reserved for Sachi in this storm.
よくわからないんだけど、これはそういう話なの？本人がそうだって言ってるんだからそうなんじゃない？だとしたらこれは面白いことになったね。お兄ちゃんがメイドになるってそんなに面白いことなのよ。さすがに奴隷とまではいかないまでもユージに無茶が言えるってことなんだしね。一応言っとくけどお兄ちゃんはもうサッチンなもんだからな。大丈夫大丈夫。浮気にならないやり方なんていくらでもあるんだから。怖え、ビッチの本気怖え。ねえユミコ、もしかしてあんたも何か頼むつもりなの？ もちろん操作みたいなことは考えてないけれど、普通の用事は頼むかもしれないわね。普通ってどんな？マッサージとか。ってあんたもやる気満々じゃないのよ。グフグフフフフ。あまねなんて完全に中年親父になってるし、いろんな意味で不安だわ。
なぜだか皆さんとても楽しそうですね。
Even as the atmosphere of our little meeting takes a rapid turn for the dubious, Sachi maintains her utterly unperturbed smile. So anyway, ultimately speaking, I might be taking some of your work from you, Sachi. Is that alright with you?
はい、ゆうくんが決めたことなら私には反対する理由がありません。
I see.
でもサチ、お兄ちゃんを信用するのはいいのだけど、今回ばかりは反対しておいた方がいいと思うのよ。
反対ってどうして？
油切った中小企業の課長みたいになってるあまねえの顔を見る限り、お兄ちゃんはきっと明日からパンツが乾く暇もなくなると思うのよさ。そうなったらお兄ちゃんの彼女になったサッチンとしては面白くねえよな。
よくわからないけど、パンツが乾かないなら乾燥機に入れればいいんじゃない？
そっか。サッチンはきっと旦那が浮気しても笑顔で許せる物分かりのいい奥さんになんな。
I hadn't anticipated this wild burst of excitement from Amane and company, but at present, Sachi doesn't seem to be harboring any doubts about my behavior, or any curiosity whatsoever, really. But that's alright for now. What really matters is what lies ahead, how Sachi's static patterns of thought will evolve through observing my example. Well, okay then, Yuuji. I wonder if you can handle this. My previous school, when compared to your more conventional learning institutions, operated on a decidedly extreme educational philosophy. As a representative example, an instructor once showed us a plain white cup, oddly insisted it was even greener than you fresh-faced little pieces of trash. He then spent the entire lesson ensuring none of us dared even think otherwise. Those relatively new to the place tended to spend a good deal of time grumbling about how insane all this was. But when the time came and we were dumped out into the field, those who survived eventually came to understand that these hazing sessions were in fact surprisingly meaningful. Point being, when you need to produce results that can't be achieved using ordinary methods, sometimes it's necessary to satisfy unfair demands. And through my steadfast dedication to this principle, I currently find myself playing the role of a devoted maid, serving a capricious master.
Yuuji, 冷たい飲み物はまだ?
Coming. As Amani reclines indolently on the sofa, I carefully bring over a freshly brewed cup of tea. Since you didn't specify anything in particular, I brought milk tea. Is that acceptable?
あれ、ユージが紅茶ってちょっと意外かも。
Well, unlike Sachi, I don't have a fully stocked supply locker. I ran over and borrowed this from Chizuru's room.
それ絶対許可取ってないわよね。
No, but that's the price you have to pay for these high quality Asam leaves. Not easy to get your hands on them lately. It's not even Amane's route yet and she's already making Yuji her slave.
私アッサムってあまり詳しくないんだけど、飲み方はミルクティーがおすすめなの？
Yeah, compared to something like Darjeeling, Assam tea is pretty strong, both in color and taste. To mellow that out a little, people usually dilute it with milk before drinking. It complements the flavor nicely.
へえ、ユージって紅茶も詳しいんだね。イメージ的にはコーヒー、ブラックでって感じなのに。
I do drink coffee more often, yeah, but black tends to upset your stomach. And if I'm drinking something other than water, I usually try to get some sugar intake while I'm at it. As a general rule, I tend to drink my coffee heavily sweetened.
こうやって聞いてみると、実はユージもいろいろと考えてるんだね。
Compared to the fine calorie counting you're always doing, it's hardly anything worth mentioning.
でも食事はあれだけ質素なんだから不思議よね。
Having declared my willingness to serve in Sachi's place, I've ended up waiting on Amane hand and foot all morning like some kind of personal servant. But after the way that conversation went yesterday, I guess I should be grateful she hasn't tried any seriously shady orders. Alright, Amane, if you got any other requests, go ahead and tell me now.
本当に言っちゃっていいの？
If you're going to ask me at some point, might as well get it out of the way now instead of later.
そっかそっか。じゃあお言葉に甘えて、ユージもさっちゃんみたいにメイド服を。
Well, will you do it, Yuji? Goodness, Samane, you seem rather fatigued. Do allow me to give you a shoulder rub. Firmly seizing Amane's shoulders as I cut off her silent sentence, I dig my thumb sharply into the muscles around her neck.
やっぱり嫌がった。
Whatever are you saying, mistress? This is nothing but an earnest expression of concern on my part.
ふーん。まあ羊っぽいユージの対応が見れたことだし、今回はそういうことにしておいてあげよう。
Thank you very much.
それにしても、ユージ、マッサージも上手。
Ramani smirks in evident satisfaction at my submissive words, but soon enough she's squirming underneath my vigorous shoulder rub. Speculating from what I've seen of Sachi's behavior, there seem to be two methods of coping with problematic requests like this one. Either attempt to interject before the words are fully out of their mouth, or deliberately fail to hear them. Of course, I don't think Sachi's consciously trying to be dishonest, but it's a fact that she's managed to slip past some difficult requests using this sort of plausible deniability technique. But given the absolute nature of the laws Sachi's imposed on herself, careless words without any real malice behind them could easily lead to disaster. To live a halfway decent life under such restraints, utilizing these kinds of gray areas is probably an absolute necessity.
なあサッチン、お兄ちゃんが何でも言うことを聞くって言ったのをいいことに、暴食美人の限りを尽くすあの年上、どう思うよ。
それを言うなら傍若無人だと思うけど、ゆうくんもあまねさんも楽しそうだからいいんじゃないかな。
その目ちゃんと見えてるか？
視力は両目とも 1.5 だよ。
最近の発言を聞いてると、だんだんサッチンのことが心配になってくるのよさ。
それよりマキちゃんはゆうくんに何かをお願いしたりはしないの？
そっか、何もお兄ちゃんはあまねえだけのものじゃなかったのよさ。
うん、ゆうくんはあまねさんだけに言ってたわけじゃないと思うし。
よし、そうと決まったら早速お兄ちゃん奪還作戦を実行するのよさ。
アイマン。
おうおう、あま兄さんよ。若いツバメを囲うで楽しむんもその辺にしときんさいや。
そうね、あんまり独り占めしてみちるに呪いの藁人形とか作られても困るし。
そんなの作らないし。
From nowhere in particular, there's an outraged burst of protest, followed immediately by the sound of someone scampering up the stairs. Probably safe to assume a certain nosy airhead was observing our little role-playing session from a fixed point in the shadows.
じゃあ前菜の了解も取ったことだし、次は私たちもお兄ちゃんタイムをエンジョイするのよさ。
でもマキちゃん、ゆうくんと一緒に何をするつもりなの？
サッチも一緒なら今日は勉強でもすっか。チルチルがテストで100点取った時みたいな顔されると、いくらハートの強さが売りの私でも傷つくぞ。
だって普段あんだけ勉強嫌いって言ってる子がいきなりだもん。そりゃ驚くって。
あまねえ、私はやっと気づいたのよさ。
気づいた？
そう、つまらないことにいつまでもこだわっていると、どこかの誰かさんみたいに生き遅れになってしまうって。くしゅっ。誰？年齢のことで私の噂をしてるのは。
誰のことを言ってるのかは分かったけど、どうにもうさんくさい気がするのは私だけ。
Well, whatever the reason may be, trying to improve your weaknesses is an admirable thing. I'll gladly help out.
し、お兄ちゃんゲットなのよさ。
で、本当に勉強するとしてどこでやるの？私の部屋？
もちろん学校の教室でやるのよ。
どうして教室？
ハマネの部屋だとすぐに副交感神経が刺激されて眠くなっちゃうからな。
すごい、なんか本当にやる気だ。
マキちゃん自身が言い出したことですし、ここは本人の気が変わらないうちに実行してしまうのが得策かもしれません。
Sounds about right. Although our study session began with this relatively auspicious show of determination, it was less than an hour before the group's attention began to wander. In the end, I was forced to endure an hour-long session of strip old maid on a whim of Makina's.
結局ユージは一回も負けなかったわね。
As we make our way back to the dorm, Amane grumbles a few resentful words, arms folded behind her head. Any card game comes down to how well you can read your opponents. When you've got the hang of that, the odds of finishing at the very bottom get pretty low.
But あれだけバカ勝ちされるとイカサマしてると思われても仕方がないのよ。
Incidentally, Amane, you tend to lead the card you want to get rid of right in the middle of your hand. And Makina, your expression always makes it crystal clear when you get the old maid. At my old school, cards were the most convenient form of entertainment by far. Couldn't help but pick up an eye for tells. Even after I started at Grisaia, many of the regular employees I worked with on the job were major poker lovers. Including a few who throw their card keys into the pot with perfectly composed faces.
おかげで私はたくさん脱がされてしまいました。
お兄ちゃんは今自分の彼女を脱がせまくった罪悪感に打ちひしがれているはずなのよ。
Personally, I think Sachi's losing streak had more to do with the way you people kept asking her which one's the old maid at the end of the round. Of course, Sachi would answer with perfect honesty every time, so she invariably ended up stuck with the Joker in the end.
だってユージの前で脱ぎたくなかったんだもん。
She prances around completely naked and shoves her breasts against me at every opportunity, but she's self-conscious about this. Sometimes women are just incomprehensible.
何にせよお見苦しいものをお見せしてしまってすみませんでした。
No problems on that count. Might have mentioned this before, but my principle is not to refuse what's offered to me.
そういう割には私に冷たいんだよね。
I think it's only natural to get suspicious over that kind of gratuitous service, but as a general rule, men tend to enjoy watching their girlfriend strip down to her underwear, and I'm no exception.
ありがとうございます。
そういうことならユージの彼女じゃない私とマキナはここらでおいとまさせてもらいましょうか。
Before anyone can respond to Amane's sudden declaration, she grabs Makina's hand and pulls a step ahead of us.
なんか用事か？
用事ってわけじゃないんだけど、あんたに新しく覚えたおやつでも作ってあげようと思ってさ。
なんか知んねえけどアマネーが優しい。さては給料日だな。
いや、学生は給料とかもらわないから。
お兄ちゃんみたいにバイトしてるわけじゃねえしな。
分かってるならなんで聞いた？
勢い。
そういうわけだから、いろいろわがままに付き合ってくれてありがとう、ユージ。
Fine by me. I was sort of expecting you to drag me around all day, to be honest.
予定が空いたならさっちゃんとデートしてくればいいじゃない。
A date?
そう、せっかく恋人同士になったんだからデートくらいして当然でしょ。
I see. Amane seems well versed in romantic maneuvering, so if she says so, maybe this is the right timing. Alright, Sachi, how about we go on a date?
はい、わかりました。
相変わらず即答だな。
さっちゃんだって女の子だもん。好きな人とデートできて嬉しくないはずがないわよね。
私はただゆうくんがしたいと言ったことにうなずくだけで。
なるほどね。
Watching Sachi squirm, Amane smirks suggestively to no one in particular. From that expression, I'm willing to bet she's plotting something. Better keep a careful eye on that one.
じゃあユージ、後のことは任せたからね。
Right.
サッチンもガツンと決めてくるのよ。
よくわからないけど、ありがとう、マキちゃん。
それじゃあ帰ってきたらいろいろ聞かせてよね。
And with those words, Amane hurries off with Makina in tow. And there they go.
行ってしまいましたね。
Well, guess we may as well go on this date then.
はい、よろしくお願いします。
Sachi nods obediently, a bright smile on her face. All perfectly typical Sachi, but today that very normality troubles me slightly. It makes me wonder if there's really any feeling behind the police tone of her voice, if that smile is completely hollow. For the time being, let's change out of our uniforms and meet up in the dorm lobby.
わかりました。
That's not true. I watched Sachi make her way back to the dorm, trying my best to reassure myself.
すみません。少し遅くなってしまいました。
No, that's a maid uniform after all, huh?
メイド服はメイド服でも、これは最近購入した外出用のおしゃれ着でして、胸元の赤いリボンもこう、より色鮮やかに。
Okay, I get it. Actually, I can't see any difference whatsoever, but I suppose I'll have to take the maid expert's word on this one. Right then, as for the plan, we decided this pretty suddenly, so I have absolutely nothing.
やっぱりそうですよね。
So for today, I thought we could do whatever you feel like, Sachi.
私がやりたいことですか？
That's right. Even if it's cleaning the dorm or bayonet drills, I'm up for it. Whatever you feel like is fine.
そうですね。
Sachi places a hand on her cheek, shuts her eyes, and begins to think the matter over.
うーん。
If nothing's coming to mind, you can say so.
すみません。私、やっぱり自分から案を出すのは苦手みたいで。
Come to think of it, you told me the same thing back when I transferred in.
はい。
When she was a kid, Sachi used to constantly invent new games and drag me into them. It's probably safe to say this is another area of her personality strongly influenced by the trauma that accident inflicted on her.
なので今日はゆうくんが普段していることを一緒にするというのはいかがでしょうか。
My typical activities basically come down to training and reading. Might be a bit of a stretch to call that a date, don't you think?
それは大丈夫です。どんな内容でも私とゆうくんがデートだと思えばそれはもう立派なデートです。
I see. Thanks to JB and Teaser's incessant grumbling, I had a pretty fixed image of that date as something like dinner at an expensive restaurant with a skyline view. But Sachi's absolutely right. The important thing is what the experience means to the people involved, not whether it meets some arbitrary societal standard. Alright, in that case, why don't you tag along on my training today?
ありがとうございます。
Keep in mind, my training's no joke. This may be a date, but be sure to approach it with the utmost caution.
は、了解したであります。
Are you ready, Ranger Kamine?
はい、運動用のメイド服に着替えてきたであります。
Yay. Okay, well, they're gonna have fun together. This is a nice beginning to dating Sachi. And apparently, Yuuji is also going to become a maid along with her. Bye!